Raising Cane's, we believe in one love, quality chicken finger meals. But creating one love is no simple task. Everything has to be served hot and fresh. Not just hot. We use only 100% premium chicken tenderloins, guaranteeing a 0% chance of leftovers. We insist on the best ingredients for our fries, like potatoes. Well, we can keep talking quality, or you can just eat it. Raising Cane's, one love.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sunspot. It's been, a couple months since we have been able to have our regular program, and I'm glad that we're back with you. I have with me former mayor of Waxahachie, current council member, newly re-elected, I guess you should say, council member David Hill. So, David, thanks for being back.
Thank you for letting me come back.
My pleasure. The idea was to, so as to not give any advantage to any candidate out there, we took a break from Sunspot with David, and now that his election is over, we're obviously comfortable with getting back to things. Before we get to our topics of discussion today, just want to say just a word or two about Uvalde, what happened on Tuesday in a city that's 80 miles west of San Antonio. You all know by now that 19 kids were killed and 2 teachers. One of those, we were talking earlier, it's one of those examples of where it's a city that I'm sure, a community that I'm sure said we can't imagine anything like that happening here. Just like we say about Waxahachie. So I guess it's just more sign or more indication of the evil in the world permeating small town America, and our hearts go out to all of that community, the school district, the parents, school administrators. Can't imagine what that must be like. But there's a big debate already started. Didn't take long for politicians to jump on the ban guns and that sort of thing. We don't even know exactly everything that happened, and so or how it happened. But it is a somber time, and time for us to really understand what's going on in this country. With that, David, do you have anything you want to share about Uvalde?
Every time you see it, you just your heart goes out. Yeah. I think the good thing about Waxahachie is, we have our SRO officers that are at the high school, and we take care of the rest of our. We have policemen that are touring through our school system on a daily basis. So we have a presence there, and you do what you can do. A lot of money's gone into the school district to getting hardened a little bit better than they were, but we're still vulnerable.
Yeah.
No matter what, when they come in with a gun and start shooting through windows, you just have a problem there that we haven't been able to resolve yet. So, but I think our community is acutely alert to those things and aware of what goes on. Doesn't mean it couldn't happen here, no. But
yeah, it's somebody determined to do what in this case happened in Uvalde and then in Buffalo a couple of weeks ago. It's if they're determined to do it, they're going to give it their best, and the hope is that they get stopped.
But I don't know if this guy really. I mean, I don't think he planned the school. I think after what they're saying is that he shot his grandmother.
He did.
Got in his truck and drove off, but the truck wrecked, and he just got out and started shooting. At a funeral home across the street, I think first. A couple of the guys over there came out and he shot at them. And then he went into the school and barricaded himself in the room. So. Yeah,
again, it's another, what David just said is another example of why I think everyone, including the President of the United States, ought to wait until we know what happened, how it happened, why it happened, and that sort of thing before we start opining about what should happen with laws and that sort of thing, in my view.
Yeah, I mean, this morning they said the grandmother is still in the hospital. She wasn't.
She didn't die. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the first reports were that he shot his grandmother, killed her.
Right.
But now to find out this morning, they're saying on the news that she's still in the hospital.
Yeah.
Fighting for her life, obviously, but still alive. So.
Well, let's hope she makes it. She maybe could provide some information as well. So you should know that the school district here has taken advanced steps to provide security at the schools. I know that my son, who's in the ninth grade, on Wednesday, when he got to school, there were dogs, canines, and whatever else there, police officers. So I think that's going on throughout the district. And so anyway, just pray for those in another Texas city that have been impacted by the evil that exists.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. With that, a few things we want to talk about. Again, it's been several months now that we've talked about city-related matters specifically, but I thought it would be good just to hear David's thoughts on kind of an update on council now that it's kind of quasi post-election, because two of the three seats for city council have been I don't know if they've been canvassed yet, but confirmed, they're official.
Yeah, we canvassed those two.
Okay, so you're in, obviously, and then Chris Wright is now in place, whatever that is. He I think 3 maybe. He beat Melissa Olson, so we know Chris Wright and you are on council. So there's 4 that sit right now. Well, there are 5, but there are 4 that we know for sure are going to be there for a longer term, and then we have a runoff, and that runoff is Doug Barnes and Patrick Suter.
That's correct.
Yeah, so I can't keep everybody straight. But anyway, so what's the mood, the tone, the climate, all that like?
Well, we're waiting for that runoff.
Yeah.
Really to reorganize the council. Melissa Olson obviously was, I guess, didn't get enough votes to stay in. Nice way to say it.
Yeah.
And Chris Wright's in. So Chris is a fresh set of eyes, a different voice, and I think he's going to be good for the council. Been here most of his life, 45 years or so.
Right.
So, but everybody has to find their footing when they get there. A lot of people find out there's more to it than they thought.
Yeah.
And they come in one way and they go out another.
Right.
But we're still not. I mean, we still vote on basic issues, just like councils do. A plat, we'll all vote yes.
Yeah.
If it's a subdivision, we may argue about it, and it's a 3-2 or 3-1 or 4-1, whatever the deal is.
Yeah.
We're not going to agree on everything, and I hope people don't think we will. You just can't get everybody to be agreeable all the time. So, and then we have personalities and likes and dislikes. So it's never what we want it to be, which is harmonious.
Right.
And sometimes that's good.
Yeah, I think harmony is an interesting word. I guess the best of companies, the best of teams, the best of groups can have disagreements, still be harmonious. It's just a matter of how, as you mentioned, how you treat each other.
Yeah.
The runoff election is on June 18th.
Yeah, early voting starts on the 6th, I believe.
Yeah, so. Yeah, that'll be here before we know it, a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks. For me, and I think you probably agree, and most people, certainly voters at large across the country, don't like runoffs. It's hard enough to get people out for a general primary election, but to get people out for runoff, brutal. And Chuck Beatty is an example last year in the primary or general, I guess you call it, had 1,600 and some odd votes, and then when it came time for runoff, he had less than half of that.
Yeah,
and that's just I don't know. I can't figure that out.
People think that after the election, that's it.
Yeah,
they're win or lose. They may not even pay attention.
Yeah,
they're just they run, go vote, and then they go back, and life continues doing what they're doing.
Yeah. So I mean, in a runoff election, not only does it reveal or expose voter fatigue, it's at the risk of or vulnerable to voter fatigue. It's expensive both for the candidates. Have you been in a runoff? Had to be in a runoff before?
No.
Okay, so but that it's expensive for candidates.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're not in a runoff, just a simple election like we do for city council can be $5,000, $10,000.
Yeah.
To if you have an opponent.
Right.
If you're not contested, I mean, it doesn't cost anything.
Right.
You don't have to be on the ballot. But if somebody throws in an application to run, whether they participate or not, if you're running, then you run to win. So.
Right, and then it costs the city what?
Well, yeah, it depends. If we have runoff, like I think Midlothian is partnering with us on this next runoff. They had a position over there that was challenged. So we'll share the cost, but it's still 11,000, I believe, is what our portion is.
Yeah, so it will be good to get that behind us. And June the 18th, after that, then that vote has to be canvassed,
Then
I
you
guess.
canvass that, and then we'll organize the new council.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
Good. But right now things are just moving along as they would. It really doesn't matter, I guess, in a sense. I mean, council doesn't slow down or stop because there's runoff.
No,
you just move
usually,
forward.
I mean, the city council can go drink coffee someplace for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And the city continues to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Mondays, we get together, city council. Of course, we have committee meetings going every week, every day. And staff is still working on almost every day having budget meetings, closing out, bringing in the new, and those discussions are continuous throughout the year. So there's always activity. There's not a day that something isn't going on. There's not a day that there isn't a challenge. And council, we're not hitting on all 8 right now, but we're hitting on enough to make sure that everything is approved or denied. So we're still able to make decisions.
Okay. Well, with that said, the annex, given our relationship with the city and our involvement in making sure we cover city things, we're down there from time to time, and every time I go down there, I'm like,
wow.
wow is right. So, for those that don't recall or don't know, there is a brand new multi-million-dollar, I don't know how many square feet that sucker has in it, but it's big.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's
big. So just across from City Hall now is a fancy, beautiful complex that's being built. So kind of where are we on that?
I think, we signed the beam. We had a topping out ceremony last week.
Right.
So everybody came down and signed the beam. They hoisted it up and bolted it in place. Put the crane up, everybody left, and the workers went back to work. So they're putting decking down on the 2 floors and starting the roof, framing up the outside walls. I think I saw Encore this morning delivering a transformer. So they say in 9 months to 10 months we'll be occupying the building.
So right after the first of the year.
Yeah. So
just had a question. Oh, is there a parking deck attached to this thing?
No deck, but there'll be, I think, 68 parking spaces in the backside.
Yeah.
So you'll come up by the railroad tracks and go to the backside. Plus, TxDOT has offered us the room under the viaduct.
Okay.
If we want to, on both sides, I think, if we want to expand parking, be at our cost, but that would still be some additional parking places.
Yeah.
So, and that's certainly something the city will entertain going forward.
Okay, good. So there you go.
We were worried about parking on Rogers.
Yeah.
So with the 68 in the back, that'll take care of pretty much anybody that's coming there to do business. Will be able to park back there.
Yeah. So, as David said, in 9 months or so, you'll be able to visit downtown and see what, I don't know, how many floors is it? 3?
It's 2. Yeah, we'll the elevator shaft goes to the 3rd, which would be we'll build it out later.
So, for all practical purposes, it constitutes a piece of Waxahachie skyline.
Yes, it does. Yeah,
we have a skyline.
Yeah. And the first time we saw the drawing, it looked like it was just out of place. And now that you see the framing, the steel structure up, the way the elevation goes down, it all kind of levels out, and it's really not. It doesn't look near as big as it did in the plans that we looked at when we first started. But I think they've already gone out. They've already shopping for the furniture and the fixtures and everything's going to be put in there. The chamber is excited about getting a place downtown.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for the city. It'll serve the city for still. I mean, way past what you and I are thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
Once we build buildings, if they're built right, we don't tear them down.
Right.
So the existing city hall that used to be a post office, and we added on to it and made council and city hall out of it. That will once we get the annex finished, then right now they're doing surveys on the existing building to see what we're going to need to do to get it reorganized to take care of staff.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about what you just said about with building the right way, it
I
typically
think
won't
they
tear
built
it
one
down.
that leaned a little bit and had to tear it down. I don't remember
Well,
the whole story, but that wasn't. I think it was a county building, maybe.
well, many of us, I know you have as well, seen pictures of the courthouse
Yes.
that goes back to the 1800s when people were milling around right here where we are on horseback,
Yeah.
carriage, and
bales of cotton. And
it blows my mind when I see those pictures. It's
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We do have a history, don't we?
we do, and that 100 years from now, somebody will be, or 150 years now, whatever, somebody will be looking back at pictures of the annex that we're building today, and it'd be the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
I would imagine. So I want to talk.
So.
I want to, for the viewers, I want to. David won his race, which was never really a question, handily. You just don't get much more of a landslide than what David had in his race. Kind of reminded me of who was it? Was it Reagan and Mondale? One of those back in the 80s was a landslide. I think it was Mondale. He won Minnesota, and that was it, his home state. And Reagan won the rest.
It's close in Minnesota, wasn't it?
Yeah, and yours was resounding. And I guess if there's ever a referendum, meaning that there's a very clear statement made by voters, it was in your race that the voters that voted, the people that voted, wanted you to remain on council. And I certainly, as everybody knows, applaud that and was one of them. Now you have another 2-year term.
Right.
When the election, this runoff election, is said and done, and then canvassed or made official, then you guys will have, like you do every year, which is, if there's one thing I could change about this charter, it would be this potential of changing the mayor every year. I think whoever is voted in by other council members as mayor ought to be mayor for that person's term. And so we'll have that change. It may not be a change. I mean, it could be Doug could win his race and remain as mayor. Sure. But the point I'm making is here that you had a race that is a referendum resounding support for you to remain on council. I think Chris Wright, the numbers aren't that wide in terms of how many more votes he got. I think 300 or 350. But when you're talking about low numbers, that is a significant margin. So I think he got the kind of support that would say the community really wanted that change. And of course, I agreed with that, as everybody knows. And so here we are now. We're about to embrace potential changes at the mayor's level, mayor pro tem. Who knows? But the potential for it exists. Yeah. And I want the viewers to know we as a community newspaper spend a lot of time, a lot of effort staying connected to the city of Waxahachie. And it's important that you all know what's going on. And if it's ugly, it's ugly. If it's pretty, it's pretty. But there are things that happen that, as you all know by now, that we have a responsibility to share, both good, bad, and ugly. That said, there are a few things that have taken place recently that I think you all would benefit from in terms of hearing David's opinion about. One of them is the municipal judge. I'm going to call it a saga. All right. Now, it may not be a saga, but that's what I'm going to call it, because I'm going to let you just tell the story and I'll shut up. But basically, there's been a lot of change. It happened in an interesting way, which leads me to call it a saga. So why don't it's important that you guys, viewers, know this, because municipal judge, the only time you don't really want to meet municipal judges, I would think. I mean, the only time you meet them is when you have been caught speeding or doing something else, and you got to go stand before them, and you're going to be told you have to pay a fine. So what is a municipal judge, and why did we make a change with the two that we had just a month ago?
Wow.
That's a lot, huh?
That is a lot. I think, a municipal judge, in our instance, and most cities have them, They take care of traffic tickets and such as that, Class C misdemeanors and small things. They're limited in what they can do,
Right.
but they pretty much take care of the city's issues. Then countywide justice of the peace and district judges handle the larger cases. They have their duties as well. In our instance, when there's bail set and things like that, the municipal judge can handle those things if no one's here to take care of it. It's just peace can't be there to take care of it. So,
But just so we're clear, that's not really, I mean, what a municipal judge does, correct?
Well, it's been an agreement. So I think if you look at the law says JPs do that. That's their role or part of their duties.
Right.
That's not all they do.
Right.
Municipal judges, not so much, but they can because they're also past the bar. They're lawyers, and so they can handle those cases. I don't know that arena that well to know everything about it. I do know that what caused the change in our municipal court system with the two judges being released was based off of two cases that we had here in the city dealing with bond issues.
Right. So one of those was one of those was the death of an infant.
Yes.
At the hands of, I don't know if it's.
I think it was father and mother. I think both were arrested. I don't know the whole case.
And then the second was with the what is now, I guess, an infamous video of
shooting over
one neighbor shooting the other neighbor over a parking spot in broad daylight down here on Kaufman Street.
Right.
So that's what compelled what you're sharing.
Yeah, that's what. Well, and I think one was released because both of them were released because they thought it was bad judgment on both their cases. I don't know how many judges make mistakes. I think they do it often.
Yeah.
I thought it was maybe we were a little bit too quick to rush to judgment because we haven't had a trial. I mean, we only saw what we saw. Was there a different way to do it? There may have been. But we did what we did. I think everybody voted to at least ask for resignations was what we did. One did resign, the other chose not to resign. I didn't think he did anything wrong, so he was terminated. And since then, we have appointed an interim to take the court, as well as I think
an associate. Is that what they call it?
We just
or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason for
they're both interim. So.
Right. And the reason for the two judges that were there no longer being here primarily has to do with the lowering of bonds that were set.
Right.
And for what I assume are valid reasons, at least in these two judges, municipal judges' minds, they lowered bonds that really the community in both cases kind of were outraged by.
Well, no, I mean, everybody keeps telling me. I mean, one was reduced from $1 million down to half a million. And everybody agrees that with $500,000, we really would have been the
from the get-go.
Where you'd be anyhow.
Yeah.
So okay, so we took it from $1 million, but it wasn't just the reduction of it. Evidently, there were other discussions between Justice of the Peace and the municipal judge that led to some arguments, and that was part of the cause as well. The second one, Senate Bill 6 that passed in 21 that went into effect. Evidently, you can put restrictions and conditions on these bonds, and there weren't any put on the fellow that did the shooting.
Yeah.
So that was evidently the main point argued, and so they felt like that was And then somebody said that you know they didn't even take the training for Senate Bill 6, but it turned out that they did. They
Yeah.
just took it someplace else.
Right.
They didn't take the course that was offered here in the county.
Right.
So it wasn't that they didn't do it; it's that they didn't apply it. And I don't really understand, nor do I know all that was said in all the closed door meetings, nor any of the open meetings. It's just a lot of stuff that we don't know because there hasn't been, even on the two incidents that took place. I don't think there's been trials.
There haven't been
So
trials. Yeah, the second one that you're talking about is where the gentleman shot his neighbor. I chuckle because
yeah,
it's hard to imagine just in the middle of the day, and it was on video camera caught it. But they live next door to each other in what I could be wrong on this, but I think it's like condos, townhouses that are
right.
I don't know if they're connected or if there's space actually between them.
Should be a firewall between them, but
Yeah, but
they are
I'm talking about
connected.
like So there's no walkway between the two
no,
of them.
no. There's individual.
And so so the man that was shot has a wife and a daughter or a child and maybe a boy, but a child. And the man who shot him had a bond, no conditions on it, which a condition would have been in that case, you cannot go back to where you live until this is decided upon.
You could, 1,000 foot away. Or,
because
you could have done.
Yeah, the victim's wife and child lives there. So because of no condition, and I don't know if this happened, my guess is that she probably took steps to get away. But in theory, they could have had the event happen, and then the man bailed out, and they're actually living as neighbors.
I think the lady that lived, whose husband was shot, she's already moved out.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I don't know. Then the other fella that did the shooting, I think they said was in Dallas.
Okay.
So he's not even living there right now.
And the victim is still in the hospital, from what I was told. I don't know if it's been happened.
I'm not sure. I haven't heard that.
It's an example of things that go on on council that most of us don't have any knowledge of, not because it's being kept quiet. It's quite the opposite. And particularly when we reported on this, but it's just an example of the inner workings of a council, and it gets a little bit dicey when council members, all council members, aren't informed of the same thing, or other council members are taking actions that they haven't shared with their fellow colleagues on council, which I think kind of happened here as it relates to the new hires. Don't have all the facts, waiting on some information so that we can share with the public. But any thoughts on the importance of, I mean, if you're going to go do something as a council member, or you're going to team up with someone else, and that which doesn't, 2 of 5 does not constitute a quorum, correct?
Right.
3 of 5 does.
Pretty much.
So you can, again, in theory, you could team up with somebody that you get along with on council and go pursue something, and then tell city manager and council about it whenever you want to, and not have broken any rules. It's probably not, I don't know if it's unethical, but it's certainly not cool or kosher to be going off half-cocked and teaming up with another person without informing the rest of your peer group or city manager.
That's true.
But in this case, we know there's an element of some of that, because you as a council member weren't aware of some of the things that were happening with respect to replacing these folks. Fair to say?
Yeah, but there's a lot of almost 99% of the time the city manager knows what's going on, and the council is aware of everything that happens. We get an update.
Right.
And in 8 years, I don't think I've ever experienced a situation where a couple of council people decided to take charge without notifying everybody, so that everybody's aware. So that when whatever they go do, and we start getting phone calls about it, we understand how to respond to it.
Right.
Or say, yes, we're aware of that.
Right.
Don't know what they're doing, but we know that they're doing something, right?
Yeah.
But in this particular case, a lot of stuff was happening. And it's not. I didn't think it was the right way to do it, but I'm just one guy because we've never done it that way. We didn't know that. I didn't know that you could do that. I thought we were supposed to stay in contact, and everybody knew what was going on. Whether you conduct, I don't care if you have to have an executive meeting to go over what we are doing and where we are in a certain area, or the city manager would at least brief everybody.
Right.
But it was, some of it was a surprise.
Yeah. So executive sessions aren't there for you to be in. It could be. I don't want to say it's only executive sessions are intended to have a group of people together, in this case council, where you discuss things that are put on the table and they're confidential.
Right.
It isn't. It's far less about, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it's kind of a statement that poses a question. It's far less about you guys having an executive session and the council members who weren't in the know about something are informed that this is what took place after the fact. So is that a fair statement? I mean,
kind of.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, but an executive session is only for personnel and maybe land acquisition or something like that. So I mean, it's very specific as to what topics you call an executive session for. You can't do it because you want to change the striping on the street.
Right.
That's open meetings. So
yeah.
But anything that has personnel in it, that's where you're talking about firing or hiring or salaries or stuff. That's all kind of private.
Right.
So we do it in an executive session, which is supposed to be whoever's in the meeting is supposed to keep their mouth shut and not divulge what was spoken about. Gives us the ability to have those confidential meetings.
Right.
That's been breached, that confidentiality. So now you really are a little hesitant.
Yeah, it has been breached. I mean, we as a newspaper know of certain things that are discussed in executive session, and we shouldn't. And so it's hard to. You can bet that if I'm told there's a confidential meeting, I'm sharing something confidential, and then I find out it's been shared, that it's no longer a confidential meeting. You can call it that, but it's not. Yeah. Going back, just so we come 360 on these judges, who by charter or by law or whatever you want to call it is the hiring, firing person for municipal judge in the city, in our city structure?
In our city structure, well, our city council hires the judges.
Okay.
The council.
By vote.
Yes, and the way we've done it in the past is we'll post the job, or we'll put the solicitation out for resumes, whatever method they use. We get 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 resumes that come in. City staff will usually go through and just kind of do a basic review of each one of them, make sure they're born in America, live in the city, are alive, or I mean, whatever the qualifications are. Yeah. And then they'll call a meeting of city council. They'll say, we got 15 resumes, and here's 10 that, for your review. You can look at them. We'll give you a copy of them, and we'll do that. And then somebody will say, well, Bob looks good, or Larry looks good, and I like Mary. So what do y'all think? And we'll have that conversation, and then we'll settle on one person for the judge and one for the associate. Sometimes the judge will say, I've got a friend that would love to have the associate, and he and I have worked together before, and we have a good working relationship. We take all that under consultation and make a decision on who we're going to choose.
None of that happened in this case, right?
No.
So what happened? And look, I am pretty passionate as a member of the newspaper here. So is our newsroom, about making sure that we report on what goes on at city council, school district, county. Although we're not a county newspaper, but we follow all this stuff. It's not something we just decided one day we're going to play gotcha and go around, with Dr. Clouseau and try to find all this stuff. In this case, as in every case, we want to know how things went, and so we'll file open records requests.
Right.
We'll talk to council members. We'll talk to city manager and city staff, whomever that will go on record, and most do because we've proven to not be up to something nefarious. But in this case, that from all indications, and again, I'm still waiting on some open records request information, but it appears that protocol, that process, didn't happen the way that it sounds like it should, and there's nothing intended to again embarrass anybody or play gotcha or hurt anybody's feelings or be a bully or whatever the labels are thrown my way, but I have to put that aside and say the city, the people living in the city who don't know otherwise, deserve for it to be proper and ethical and by law and that sort of thing. That's why who we put on council makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and even though our process is not in a legal ordinance, it's always been, but it's the way it's always been done. So back to Joe Gallo and beyond him, Ed Gentry, I think was maybe an exception. Joe referred him, and at the time we didn't have a controversy, so it wasn't an issue, and council approved him to be hired. And I think what this case is a little bit special because the person that was selected by two people that pretty much went out and recruited the person, and also the associate as well.
Yeah.
And we're sitting in the sad thing is Chris Wright, who just got here. This is all new to him, so he's sitting in an executive. Well, I can't say I can, but he's sitting in a meeting, and just hearing this stuff first time, and it has to make a decision whether or not to say yes or no.
Yeah, that to me is not conducive to having a great council, and it's not fair and it's not right.
It's not fair to Chris.
It's certainly not, and I would, as my opinion, nobody else's that I know of, although I think there are people who would agree with this, is that once we get all the facts here, that it's going to be clear that 3 people on this council didn't really know what 2 were doing. And I want to verify that, but that's my opinion at this point. And it may be that these 2 people are the best. My feeling is that the word interim has been attached or appended to them because of the clunks in the process, or the maybe call them missteps. I could be wrong about that, but because none of this was posted, not that it maybe doesn't have to be, but now it is. Right now we've hired 2 people, and now we post the jobs. It's a little backwards to me, and I think that interim makes it such that at least we have 2 people in these roles, and then move forward.
I really thought that we acted too quickly. All you needed was a week more, and you could have said, we're going to go ahead and post the deal. And you could have had to talk with the 2 judges, ask for the resignation. If they said no, then you could say, we're going to either let your term run out, and at the end of the term, we're not going to renew your contract. That would have been an easy way to get it done. But there was kind of a rush, in my opinion, to judgment. Could have been handled a little bit more discreetly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. I know it isn't easy to share all that, but I appreciate your transparency and your openness about it.
It's just me, though. I don't know about everybody else's feelings.
Well, I've heard from more than just one council member about this, and I've heard from one that was pretty raw and pretty emphatic about, let me just say, their feelings about this, and that they don't want any part of that kind of awkward process.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a lot of awkward processes.
Yeah. I think that's to me that all comes from, as I was starting to write in the column to come at some point in the future, it comes from this euphoria over having some degree of power, whether it's real or perceived, and it could be on the playground, or it could be at the president level and all steps in between. But you get this power, and all of a sudden, you start thinking, I can do what I want to do, and you can't. And Lord knows I've failed with this in the past, but the power of the pen is one that requires a lot of discipline to not misuse.
Well,
And
the tongue is the same way.
it's the same way. So when I sit down to write a column, I got to be mindful that just because people are going to read it doesn't mean that I can say whatever I want to say. Same thing with, in this case, city council people. Just because you're on city council and have a degree of power doesn't mean that you can abuse it or misuse it or overuse it. It's the opposite. Really, you're a servant in the truest sense of the word, right?
That's kind of what they told me when I got there.
I mean, we call you all public servants. So council members can get mad at me all they want to, or the newspaper, but that isn't going to slow us down. Matter of fact, when folks do get mad, it's probably it's like a barking dog that's making it clear that he's the one that should be even more focused in on. So getting angry about it is more of a sign that something's a bit uncomfortable.
I heard a pastor say one time, if you throw a rock out in a pack of dogs, first one that squeals, is the one that got hit.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of the way this is.
Yeah, it is.
If you start when you start telling or exposing or telling the truth, I think sometimes people have a hard time dealing with it.
Yeah, and I don't want to belabor this point, but I do want to share in a column a couple of weeks ago, I wrote a paragraph in it about my issues with Melissa Olson, and that I wanted to wish her the best, and I meant that, and I did say exactly what I felt. That then was posted and by Miss Olson, and in such a way that provoked a number of people, from what I understand, to kind of go ape crazy on me, which is fine. But it's all I've done is try to rely on the truth about what I know about Miss Olson's behaviors on council and her voting record and that sort of thing. So when you do that, when you say, okay, I think I know, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to worry about what people respond.
Right.
It's so we're going to continue to do that. As I mentioned in that same column, I don't want to have issues with council people. I like the kind of relationship we have, or that I have with Michael Scott, or that I have with Chris Wright, and so I don't look for those issues. But when things happen, they have to be reported.
There's nothing done at city council, or even in executive sessions, that can't be talked about civilly, just like we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Unless something is going on, you should be able to talk about everything we do.
Yeah. And
there's nothing that we do that, matter of fact, that's not even documented online someplace.
Right.
That's not as transparent as we can get it.
Yeah, I agree. So, and Patrick Suter, who's in the runoff with Waxahachie's Mayor Doug Barnes, got up and spoke at the executive session meeting today. And for those of you that it wasn't streamed, we're Andy, in a story that's forthcoming, will have quotes from Mr. Suter, but by and large, Mr. Suter basically said, if this is, he wasn't accusing anyone, but if what he's heard is true, that this process was kind of backwards and kept in the dark, that he is certainly a candidate and a citizen, isn't going to stand for that. Did you agree with what he said by and large, or find any fault with it?
I found out what he said is basically the way I understand the process took place.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All righty.
And there's others. I mean, there's a couple that will argue that.
Yeah.
But everything I've heard leads me to believe that.
Yep.
So
we live in a dynamic city, fast growing. It's going to be in 2030, which we keep saying that, or I do anyway. Like, it's like when I got my actuaries when I was 25 years old, when I worked for a corporate company, that said in 2026 you will retire. And this, look, I'm like 2026. That's ridiculous. Yeah. And now here we almost are. Same thing with 2030. We keep saying there's going to be 17,000 students in the district. We could be approaching 60,000 people in our community, and it's going to be here before we know it. So when we talk about these things, you and I and others that are going on in council, and the decisions are being made and how they're being made, it's not in podunk USA. It's in a city that is very soon, if it's not already, on a lot of maps in this country. And we have to do things right, and we have to be represented well.
Yeah.
That's why you, in my view, that's why you had the referendum you had in your vote. Why Chris Wright won his the way he did, and we'll see what happens in the vote, the runoff.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Just need to get people out to vote.
Yeah. So
Same
vote
thing.
June the 18th.
Yeah.
I swear it takes 5 minutes. It'll take you longer in some cases to get out of your driveway than it does to actually park, go in, vote, and walk out. Because I don't know, you said there was Midlothian, there is somebody.
Midlothian's got a runoff, and then we've got a runoff.
2 checks on
checks, yeah.
and you're done.
It'll be a tough one this time, right?
It's amazing. This past one for the general and city council and school board took me literally 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So please take a minute or two of the week of June 6th.
They gave me 2 cotton swabs because there was a low turnout. So.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So June 6th, week of June 6th, and a couple days the following week is early voting, and then on June the 18th is election day. So for these runoffs, so please do something if you can to make a difference. In the best way is to vote. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to mention at this point?
Is that all we've got today?
Yeah.
Topics.
But because we're getting back into, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. David will be every other week. But is there anything else that you want to talk about today?
Oh, I don't. There's nothing really. It's summer's coming.
Yeah, so we got July 4th activities will be coming soon.
Memorial Day. Is coming weekend. I'll be in Indianapolis at the 500.
Yeah.
May 30th is used to be Memorial Day, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's my birthday, so they have a race for me up there, and we go to it every year.
Yeah, I've heard that is an awesome experience.
Yeah. We'll leave Saturday and be at the race on Sunday, then come back Tuesday morning. Or fly.
Yeah, I've heard many people, friends of mine, that go to the 500 and say what an experience it is.
What a deal. I started going in 72. 72 was my first year. I think I've missed probably 5 years out of all that. It's 400,000 people on a sunshiny day. Watch some people drive.
Yeah.
200 miles an hour. I think they ran 241 on a lap.
That's amazing. And those cars are, NASCAR's loud, but those Indy cars got that scream to them. But I would much rather.
But there's nothing like it.
I would much rather watch an Indy race. Yeah. My sister's going to shoot me, and today's her birthday, but she's a NASCAR maniac, all 100 pounds over, 5 feet tall. But I'd much rather watch Indy than NASCAR.
NASCAR, when Dale Earnhardt died.
Yeah, that was
kind of sucked the air out of it.
Yeah.
Started changing too much stuff.
Yeah.
So,
right.
But.
Well, good. We all have fun. That's next weekend. Wait.
We leave this Saturday, I think at 11:30.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go. We'll be careful. Well, I'll be watching.
I'm not flying. Somebody else will do that. Well, I think. I'm ready to take over the controls just in case.
When you see the pilot, just say, follow my finger, make sure.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have a good time.
We will.
But there's a whole lot coming up for the city of Waxahachie. A lot of great stuff is happening. Extraordinary, beautiful city. Lots of passion here. And I'm grateful for all the work that city council does. It's just that my plea is to just do it excellent. And thank you for what you do. Okay.
Thank you.
So that's it for Sunspot. I'm Scott Brooks for David Hill. We will be back in a couple of weeks. So thank you for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.